Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. I just thought I'd make an opening statement and speak about, what these meetings are all about and what we can expect in the future. I knew that this time would come. Sorry, I've got my neighbor's dog here. Hello. Let me give him a biscuit and then he'll disappear. Come, bird. Come, goody. Whenever he's hungry, he comes for a biscuit. Dog biscuit. Yeah, so the courses that I've done up to now, there's a lot of information that I've given out. And I know what it's like to have so much information coming that you're having to kind of absorb in a short space of time. And it can be very overpowering. I remember when I was waking up and I was getting all this information, I regularly suffered from what I called information overload. There was just too much information. So, I've given out a lot of information and I see these Sunday meetings as an opportunity to begin to tie all the bits and pieces together. Because we've talked in our past courses about the mechanics of creation and understanding the mechanics of creation, how light, becomes self-aware and it creates consciousness, and then consciousness becomes the observer that observes the hologram that they're in and that they're creating or co-creating. And then, we talked about mastering the hologram. We talked about, the soul, the evolution of the soul, the multidimensional nature of reality, and the multidimensional nature of the universe. We've talked a bit about the history of Earth, and now we're doing the Merkaba mechanics, and it is a lot of information to understand, but the basic understanding is that we are soul beings. We are not physical beings. We project ourselves into a hologram as physical soul beings, and the hologram works in a particular way, and everybody has their eye on the hologram. They think the hologram is the cause, but the hologram is simply the effect. So most people living their material lives are thinking that that is what life is all about, without an understanding that they are creating what they're observing. So instead of understanding the hologram as an effect, they live their lives as the hologram is the cause. So they miss the whole point, that we live life on two levels. One is on a physical level, and the other is on an energy soul level. And so my teachings are very much about how the soul operates, and how the soul is a magnificent creation that has the power to change the hologram. And this earth was invaded by the fallen ones a long time ago, and they disrupted things here and caused a lot of problems. But they did it all in the hologram, in the physical matter realm. They weren't able to affect our souls. So they couldn't change the construct of our souls. They changed the hologram and then made us believe that the hologram is the cause. So we think that we are physical beings living in the physical world, and we have no power over, the creation of the hologram. So we've kind of been hoodwinked here, because we don't understand that we live life on two levels. One is on the soul level, and the soul level projects experiences that we have power over to create, and that these experiences will reinforce and refine our souls so that we can continue on our soul evolutionary path. And, you know, the Earth's been in this situation for about 13,000 years, and overcoming, you know, all the indoctrination and the dogma and the false teaching and the lies and the deceptions, and it's still ongoing. You know, we see it in everyday life, you know, in what's happening in the United States of America, for instance, which we all, you know, I watch a lot of the YouTube channels and get the news, and I watch this and I think, this is crazy, what is happening? But my interest in what's happening in America goes beyond what is happening in America. It goes back to something like that is called exopolitics, which is politics of a higher, you know, that involves extraterrestrials, beings from other dimensions, beings from other planets, and those parts of ourselves that we have never met. And this is because this system we've been living in has been a closed system. You know, it's been ring fenced. And so that we are creating a hologram, not of our own making, we are creating a hologram following the script. So in a sense, we are really just experiencing a Truman Show, where we are the actors acting out the script that's been written out for us. And we fed, you know, these little rewards called salaries and wages. And every now and again, you know, we are given some little benefit, like the government will give you some sort of tax benefit, or you'll get some other benefit from society, you know, the Red Cross, or so we're given you all these little benefits to keep us, you know, dependent on this hologram out there. And so, you know, we need to come back to the soul level of understanding. And understanding the universe is just a field of energy. And it has certain things, like it's a fractal universe. It just replicates itself. It creates a system. It has a design template. And part of that design template is the design of the soul and the construct of the soul. And it works everywhere the same in the universe. So if you know, go to a place like Sirius B, what you're going to experience there is pretty much what you experience here, except that you won't have that experience of being brainwashed. You know, so the way we view the world is like a viewing point. So we don't need to change our point of view. We need to change our viewing point, so that we view our experiences here not as something that is given to us, but something that we are creating, but we are told how to create it. So we're given the script, we're given the dogma, we're given the indoctrination, we're given the lies and the history, and we believe all that nonsense. And so we create a hologram that doesn't serve us. It's a hologram that is designed to make us self-defeat and to harm ourselves. So it's been a long time, you know, this whole process of re-evolving and re-evolving this planet. But, you know, we're getting there, and my higher selves have told me that, you know, they are intimately involved in what is happening. They're all around us. The skies are filled with starships ready to evacuate the planet. They told me in 2006 that they could evacuate the entire planet, within 7 minutes. So that's how many starships and beings there are out there willing to assist us. But that we just have to do the energy work within, so that we start projecting outward what is the universal design. And the universal design works in a particular way. So we need to be sovereign. We need to be sovereign within ourselves. We need to understand that we are divinely created soul sovereign beings who have as much power as any other beings in the universe, and that we can challenge the script that's been written to say that we are powerless, that we are hopeless, that there's nothing we can do, that we are victims of this crisis that was created for us, and we can overcome that victim mentality. And that's what we have to start doing. But those changes only happen when you change from within, because when you change from within, you then begin to project that out into your hologram. So, you know, the whole teaching that I spoke about, this progression of the soul, how to manage your thoughts and emotions, and you know, there's lots of questions, you know, that if I was you, I would be asking those questions. How do you manage your thoughts? How do you manage your emotions? You know, what about if I have a compulsive disorder? You know, what if I'm ADHD? What if I'm ADD? How do I manage my thoughts and emotions with those conditions? You know, and so this Sunday meeting, I thought we'd have it so that we can start asking those deeper questions, and not just looking at the surface understanding of it, which is like a theory, but looking at the practice. How do we, you know, theoretically? But obviously the theory is also important, because the theory helps you to bring together a cohesive set of information that makes sense to you and that you can rely on and depend on, and will assist you in making the right choices for yourself and for your family and for your country and the nation and for the humanity as a whole. So yeah, that's what the purpose of these meetings are. So I've got some questions from Dawn and from Nikki. But before I deal with those, does anybody else have any questions? Okay, so I'm going to jump into the questions I'll deal with Nikki's questions first. She asked if I could talk about black goo. And she says, I presume it originates from the negative aliens. Well, yeah, black goo is a substance that is produced by what it does. It's like an alchemy effect, where it actually transmutes fear and negative energy into a substance. So it's a kind of alchemy that they do. And they do that. They can do that through many different means. One of them is through psychotronics, that they can use. You know, psychotronics is just beaming in certain frequencies that heighten people fear and anxiety, and it can get chronic to the extent that one begins to have a friend of mine who died, his name is Max Spears. He and I and several others had a psychotronic attack in the same weekend, and both of us were coughing up black goo. And what it was is, and my throat swelled up, and I couldn't eat or drink for 3 weeks, sorry. But I managed to overcome that. But he actually died because he this black goo, he just kept vomiting the black goo up, you know. So one has to protect yourself. But black goo is a very real thing. Another way they can do it is simply by heightening fear and negativity in humanity, so that it begins to transmute itself. So it takes liquids in your body, and those liquids, which are affected by their messages. Now, their messaging is just energy. It's information signals that they send out. You know, they send it out through the media, they send it out through, you know, at the moment we've got this coronavirus nonsense going on. And, you know, that's just a way to keep us in fear mode. You know, so, you know, more people die of the ordinary flu than have died of coronavirus. So it's ridiculous, you know, to the extent, but you look at what's happening. People going out to the chemist and they're buying masks and they're buying all sorts of medicines, and toilet papers are being sold out, and you know all these things that people wash their hands with to prevent themselves from, you know, when they go to the shopping mall. I looked at this the other day, and in fact yesterday, and the people walking into the shopping mall were grabbing these hand fresheners, rubbing their hands first, rubbing the trolleys, and then pushing their trolleys. I thought, this is crazy. Are people so dumb? They're afraid of something that's probably never going to happen, and that's the nature of fear. Most of the things we fear, 99% of the things we fear will never ever happen, yet we still are afraid of them. And once I realized that most of the things we are afraid of never actually happen, but they become very real to us. And so we guard against it, we take precautions, and we, you know, do all kinds of things because this fear has become so real to us. Yeah, so yeah, black goo is very important. But basically, what it does, its lesser form is called immobilization. And immobilization occurs when in your bodies, your the circadian rhythms within your bodies begin to slow down. So your natural responses begin to slow down, and this causes all kinds of problems in the body. But that's not what the word I wanted to use. Anyway, but yeah, basically it's just a mechanism they've got to slow our our energy down, to lower our energy levels, put us into fear mode, because that's their feedstock. They feed off our fear, not only energetically, but financially as well, because they create the fear. They own the pharmaceutical companies. So we buy all this crap. You know, humans go out there and buy all stock up with medicines and, you know, all masks and stuff like that. And it's just it's fear porn. And they've just feed off that stuff and drain our bank accounts, you know, because we're afraid of this thing called coronavirus, which is actually a man-made virus, which has about a 3% mortality rate. So, you know, if you get the virus, you have a 90% chance, 97% chance you're going to survive. You know, and the true story of what's happening in China isn't the coronavirus. The coronavirus became an excuse that they used for something they unleashed unwittingly in Wuhan, where they were manufacturing biological weapons. And they created a biological weapons that actually had devastating effects on humans, and that they killed them almost instantly. And so to cover up the mistake, they said, well, we can't tell people what's happening, so let's tell them that it's a coronavirus. And the coronavirus then becomes the scapegoat for the actual event that was created. So now everyone's afraid of this coronavirus, and it's becoming an international thing, when in actual fact, it's really just, to put it bluntly, it's all just bullshit. You know, that's what it is. And it's bullshit to manipulate people and to get them to buy stuff that they don't need, and to put them into fear mode, and to get everyone talking about coronavirus like we are now. Which we shouldn't be. We should just laugh it off and say, no, it doesn't matter. It has no effect whatsoever on me personally, or, my friends. How many people do you know have died from the coronavirus? You probably know more people who've had heart attacks or had the flu, or earache or toothache or whatever. And so we're making a mountain out of a molehill, but the real problem has been hidden in that there are biological weapons that are being created that have a devastating effect on the human anatomy. So yeah, that's what I think the coronavirus is all about. Next question from Nikki. Do you agree that Thoth is Lucifer? Well, the short answer is no. Thoth is one of the fallen angels, and there's a whole lot of them that are the fallen angels are a band. They're a group. They're a collective of beings. They followed Lucifer was what might be called an angel of light. And he was from the dimensions 11 and a half. And he was about to enter the 12th dimension when he decided that he didn't want to enter the 12th dimension because he'd learned all the stuff on how creation works and how multidimensionalism works and how holograms work, that he decided that he would like to be immortal. So he abandoned his soul contract, and he convinced a whole bunch of other beings in the universe, not all of them from the 11 and a half dimensions, many of them from the 9th, and then all the way down to the 6th dimension. And all these beings gathered, and they became marauders, where they no longer feed off the natural energy that the universe provides, but they go and maraud other time-space continua, and they're having a party. Really, that's what they're doing. They're having a drunken party where they're just going to feed off the energy of other beings. They're going to feel like they're powerful beings. Now, in the instance of Thoth was a very highly respected and respected being who was connected to Earth for a long time. So in a sense, he's more like the Earth Satan. And he broke his contract, and then he revoked his contract, and he went back to his contract and agreed to. So he's been jumping in and out of, like many other fallen ones. They when they get cornered in, energetically, and they say, well, woe is me, I agree to come back into the fold and into the universal energy system. And then for as long as that is convenient for them, and then they break down again, they fall back on their nefarious ways. So no, Lucifer is not Thoth, and Thoth is not Lucifer. But to understand that the whole notion of Lucifer and Satan and all of those beings, Baphomet, and they all have different names, but they're not the same being. They're all different beings, and they are a collective of beings, and Satan is a collective. And the word Satan comes from the notion of Saturn, which was the planet that was projecting the blank slate technologies from Saturn to Mercury, Mercury to Mars, Mars to the Moon, and then it was projected onto Earth. So that whole system, the Saturn-Satan system, has been taken under the control of the beloveds, the galactic galactic family. Okay, let's look at the next question. By the way, if you want to question what I've said or you don't understand what I've said, please go ahead and shout. Do we still have only 10 dimensions on Earth? Will we go back to 12 dimensions soon, as we have reached the 144,000 conscious beings? Well, that's quite a a question, because I question a lot of the premises for that information. First of all, the 10 dimensions on Earth. Earth doesn't have dimensions in the sense that the universe has dimensions, and Earth is a third dimensional being. So people talking, and I've heard people talk about, the 10 dimensions of Earth, and the Earth's going to enter the 6th dimension. And then we've got to work our way up to and there are a lot of misunderstanding about that. The Earth is just a field of energy, a holographic projection of the beings, of the soul beings that are living on Earth. And Earth is the soul herself, who is hosting all these beings. And she's also on her own soul evolutionary path. And the soul evolutionary path goes from dimensions 1, 2, and 3. And that creates harmonic bandwidth. It's like the 3 chords in a piano on a musical scale. You have the 1st, the 5th, and the 7th note, which are the would create the major chords for a harmonic. So it works the same way. You get 3 dimensions: the 1st, 5th, and 7th notes. And in this case, it's the first chakra, 5th chakra, and the 7th chakra. And it goes all the way up the scale, so yeah, I don't want to get too much into that, but no, the Earth doesn't have 10 dimensions. The universe has a dimensional system in which planets are created and holograms are created. So if people talk about dimensions, all they're talking about is about energy and the frequency of energy, and how that energy creates harmonic bandwidths in which reality fields are created. Now that sounds like a mouthful, but dimensions are just frequencies of energy. It's like if you want to watch TV, you take your remote and you change from one channel to the other. What you're doing is you're changing the frequency of the information coming in from the TV station, and it's receiving it on a different frequency. So that's what dimensions are all about. It's just that dimensions create a field of energy in which soul beings can experience themselves in their soul evolution. It's like, for instance, dimensions 1 would apply to amoebas and bacteria and viruses, who are dimensional 1 beings. They don't have emotions, they don't have thought. They're just physical matter beings who have to progress and have experiences that take them up to the next evolutionary path, which is dimension 2. Then you have the dimension 2 beings, which are the minerals and the elements, and they become more apparent in physical matter. And then you get to dimension 3 beings, which include the fish, the avians, the insects, the animals, and humans. And so, yeah, the dimensions are just different frequencies that people experience in their soul evolution. I don't know if that makes any sense, but Nikki, are you happy with that answer? Do you understand what I've said? Okay, thank you. Are there 365 dimensions? If so, can you be able to reach 10 or 12 on the Earth? Seems like a drop in the ocean. Well, I don't know where that thought that there are 365 dimensions come from, but I've never heard that myself. But in our Earth realm, we belong to a universal structure. Okay, but there are many universes, in our universe, there is our universe, then there's a parallel universe, and then there's two other universes that are, one is parallel and the other one's a reality field. So those four universes together provide 48 different dimensions, but they work the same everywhere. I don't know where the 365 dimensions come from. You know, I've never heard that before, so I can't really answer that. Can you explain, please, about the 7 super universes? Well, again, I've never heard of the 7 super universes. You know, the universal structure, you get the 4 time, space continuum reality fields, which consist of 12 dimensions. And then you get they form a kind of a cross. And in the center, in the 15th, 12, 13, 15, with 12, 13, no, it's 13, 15, 12, 13, and 15 dimensions, they cross over. And that is common to all those dimensions. So that is where the light, they call the light and sound fields. And that is where pure light comes into a reality system. But there are many, many, you know, millions of these reality systems in the universe. I don't know if one could even count them, because they just go on and on and on and on, and they implode and then come back again. And it's just a replicating system that appears and then disappears and appears and disappears, and it becomes something and becomes something else. So it's very difficult to, you know, when you get into that level of understanding of the universe, it's just boggles the mind, you know. So I've never really allowed my consciousness to go beyond the 12th dimension, because that's as much as my brain can stand. Okay, I think we've dealt with all of those. Then Dawn's asked some questions. What do you mean 3 seedings of Earth and we are in the 3rd seeding? Well, what I mean by that is the Earth was a planet that belonged to another, was a piece of another planet called Tara, which exploded, and there was a long history to that, which I'm going to deal with in a future course on the history of the Earth, so that people understand that there's a long history behind what is happening here, not only on the planet, but interdimensionally as well. And Earth became sort of, the Earth held the 5th chakra of Tara in its morphogenetic field. Okay, so it's highly valuable as far as frequency is concerned. So we like the heart chakra of the planet Tara. And what the realignment and rescue mission was all about was bringing back bringing back into the morphogenetic field of Earth all the other chakras, so that Earth's chakra and soul body would be completed. And that's what's been happening over the years. And we've almost completed that assignment. And, you know, that's what makes us eligible for an ascension process. Because in a normal ascension process, of course, what happens is the stargates open and people can then ascend through stargates. But that can't happen on Earth, because Earth stargates are held by the fallen ones, and then most of them have been damaged, or the Q sites, you know, activate stargates. And I'll deal with that more in future courses as well. So they've damaged the Q sites. Now, a Q site is just a crystal pylon grid that goes down very deep into the Earth. It's about a mile down into the Earth. And there's some that are, you know, in the US, they've got a crystal pylon grid that you can actually go and visit. And it's just a pylon of crystals that goes down miles into the earth. You know, in this particular site where you can visit, it's about 200 meters below the earth, and you just see these massive crystal pylons, crystals held together. And you know, that's basically what a Q site is. It's a crystal pylon grid that sends out signals to the stargates when the Earth is in certain planetary alignment with the galactic central sun. Now we're approaching that time when the galactic central sun is going to release what many people call the event, which is a solar flash. But if essentially it's not a flash or a solar, it's just basically a charge of energy that comes in and activates certain, you know, the Earth grids. So the work that I was doing as a grid keeper before was to realign Earth's grids and to create a kind of a proxy Stargate system, so that the Earth's, and also a chakra system on Earth, so that when this realignment occurs, the Earth will go back to its natural 90-degree rotational spin. But before that happens, of course, we'll be transformed, the Earth will be transformed, and you know, the hologram we have been forced to watch will be changed, and we'll return to our normal, natural state of being angelic humans. So, you know, that's kind of how that works. The third seeding, yeah, okay. That in the history of the Earth, the first seeding of Earth happened about 400 million years ago, and it was the time of the dinosaurs, and humans were only introduced into that at a very late stage, because there were all the other matter beings that had created all the vegetation, the predators and so on, and all these beings that were created here were came from DNA that was donated to Earth and given to the geneticists who were in charge of that, which were beings from Sirius B and Enki and Enlil, and they created this all the matter beings on Earth, and humans were very low intelligence creatures at that time. What they call them, not quite ape, but you know, ape-like beings, the caveman, in other words. And unfortunately, what happened there was an electric war between different factions in the universe, who all wanted to claim Earth as their territory. So in defense of Earth, there was an electric war, and that destroyed the planet. It created, you know, an apocalyptic event, and all matter on Earth was destroyed. And so they had to, many years later, once the Earth's natural nature cycles were returned, and the sun was in its place and the clouds were in the sky again, they could begin creating, you know, reseeding the Earth. And so they reseeded the Earth the second time, and that reseeding of Earth was similarly destroyed by beings who wanted to claim Earth as its territory. And there was a fight going on because, you know, when Earth was created, from when Tara blew up, it blew up because there were factions of beings, the Atlanteans and the Emurial, they're called they weren't called the Atlanteans, they were called the Atlanteans, and the Emurians, I think they were called, who later inhabited Atlantis and Lemuria. So yeah, these factions started fighting again, and they destroyed the planet. And so they had to, about 142,000 years ago, the third seeding took place. And at that stage, the Galactic Federation decided that they were going to protect the Earth and create a protective shield around the Earth, so that the only beings who could destroy the Earth were the Earth beings themselves, human beings, in other words. So they created this wonderful place, which became known as the jewel of the universe, because of the diversity of life here, because of Earth was a very successful trading planet, and beings from all over the universe came here to trade, to admire the beauty of Earth. And, it was a really focal point for so much, that happened in the universe. And because of that, we were given the Universal Stargate was built at the Pyramids of Giza. And the Universal Stargate is a portal that travels beyond the universe. So we've got planetary stargates, galactic, solar stargates, galactic stargates, and universal stargates. And the planetary stargates are portals from the different portal points on Earth. There are 12 of them. And then there are galactic stargates, which are also 12 of them, which were on Earth, which could transport you, solar stargates, which transported you to the universe, to the other planets in our solar system. And then there were galactic stargates, and there were also 12 points on Earth where you could go to different galaxies, 12 different galaxies. And then there was just the one universal stargate, which could take you into a kind of quarantine place, where from there you could go into different parts of the universe. But very few people could actually use that. I believe that was the Stargate that Yeshua used in order to ascend, when he ascended. But yeah, it's a very powerful portal, that. And you'll understand a lot more when I explain the power of the Merkaba and how Merkaba fields works, and how pyramids create energy, or energy generators. And that was their purpose beforehand. But, once the Earth here beings decided that they were going to allow the fallen angelics to bring in a second moon, that collapsed and destroyed Earth's Merkaba field, because it tilted the Merkaba. So the Merkaba field consists of two pyramid-like structures that counter-rotate each other. But when you misalign them, then that weakens the energy that's created by that Merkaba field. But the good news is, in my course, in the part, I'm going to do 4 parts of this course. In the 4th part, I'm going to be doing an exercise with you and explain how all of us can realign our Merkaba field, so that we begin to have the same power within our Merkaba fields, in the future. And that's going to be an important thing for humans to actually go through, is to realign their Merkaba fields. But, there's not much happening on this planet in terms of Merkaba realignments and activation. So this possibly is the first, it's the second that I know of that is available on this planet. So yeah, it's going to be quite an eye-opener when that happens. Can you explain harmonic bandwidth 2? It's the next question. And I think I've explained that, Dawn, that you get the first 3 dimensions, which forms harmonic bandwidth 1, and then the next 3, which dimensions 4, 5, and 6, create harmonic bandwidth 2. And you get harmonic bandwidth 3 and harmonic bandwidth 4. So, it's just different parts of the dimensional system, which are all part of the soul evolutionary process, which I explain in that course on soul evolution. So if you can't remember that, just go back and have a look at that. regarding the chakras, can you show us for the female and chakra? For the female, chakra goes out the back into the front, then reverse the direction to around the back. Well, actually, the way it works, Dawn, is the female, the first chakra for females is it actually is magnetic, so it's drawing energy in. So it spirals in towards the sacral, and then it spirals out at the back in the opposite direction. And for the males, it's the opposite. It comes in, spirals in from the back, and it spirals out. So it becomes an electric energy, and that's basically the difference between, you know, the magnetic female and electric male. But there's also a change, opposite direction change in the Merkaba fields, which you'll get in my next course, where the magnetic field of the female energy is the counterclockwise and then clockwise, and it's opposite with male. So there's, you know, that, and it's an energetic thing because females are more magnetic energy. So the magnetic energy is the emotional energy, and it goes out in a circular way. So magnetic fields project out in like concentric circles, whereas electric energy goes out, it's one direction. So that magnetic energy that females have is 360 degrees. That's why it's one of the most powerful forces in the universe, is magnetic energy. That's why women are so powerful. And men are so, you know, they have a kind of miasmic look at things, you know.
So Colin, when I read that, it was, I visualized it sort of like coming out and then coming around, but that's not the case then. Like coming, it seemed when I read it, it seemed like comes out of the back, into the front, and then back out again. But is that more internal?
Yeah, I didn't want to get too technical about it, but it comes in through the front, out through the back, spirals out, and then goes into the back to the second chakra, and then spirals out the front. So you get this complementary energy spiraling into the sacral, coming out through the back, spiraling round to the second chakra, and then it spirals out the front as electric energy. So it's kind of magnetic, electric, magnetic, electric, magnetic.
Oh,
okay.
Perfect.
How the seventh goes down. Can you show us how the seventh chakra goes down and out of the heart to the bottom of the spine and up? Again, I didn't want to get too technical, but you know, it's one of the courses that I haven't completed yet, is which chakras manage which parts of the anatomy. But basically, the seventh chakra is that chakra that doesn't manage organs, but it manages all our nervous system, anything that spreads widely around the body, our nervous system and our hormonal system, and therefore the glandular system of the body. But basically, for males, it comes in through the top and spirals out through the bottom, and from the females, it spirals in from the bottom and comes out the top of the anatomy. But what it does is the seventh chakra holds the let's put it, the seventh chakra can hold the energy intact of all the other six chakras. So it's almost like a musician who can play, you know, the lower notes in the scale and can play the higher notes in the scale, whereas the other chakras have a certain, you know, frequency in which they are restricted. But the seventh chakra is able to come in and what's the word I'm looking for? can be compatible with any of the other frequencies of all the other 6 chakras. So it plays a role of holding together the other 6 chakras, but it also draws in the central vertical energy through the soul body. Now you'll learn more about the central vertical energy in the Merkaba field, because the central vertical energy is how the chakra system, you know, we've got the 7th, 8th and 9th chakra, which comes in through the head down here, into, through the thymus and out, and all the other chakras, but they're all interconnected in a system of energy exchange. And you'll learn in the Merkaba field when we talk about there, in our electrical system, power systems, you have the energy generation, which is the power stations and so on that they create. And then that energy gets transmitted through transmission lines to the different parts of the country. And then that from there it gets distributed. So the Merkaba field is the energy generation system that generates the power. The chakras are the transmission system that transmit the energy into the body. And then the what are called the Kathara grid, it's is the distribution system in the body. Now, I haven't spoken about the Kathara grid before, but the Kathara grid is basically just that. In acupuncture, they call them what do they call them? Not ley lines. They're called something else.
Meridian lines.
Meridian lines. Yeah, they're called meridian lines. And acupuncturists actually use those meridian lines as points of energy in the body through which they can distribute, they can activate certain energy points in the body and use that to distribute that energy to, say, the various organs in your body. But they you know, the really good acupuncturists can actually affect your nervous system, and they can do a lot of diagnosis of what's wrong with the human body or the energy system. Now, the soul body has the Kathara grid, and the human body has the meridian lines. Now, we can cure ourselves through the Kathara grid and the meridian lines. So we can, you know, that they're interconnected. There's a symbiotic relationship between our chakras and our organs in our body, and there's a symbiotic relationship between the meridian lines and the Kathara grid. And it's a 12-point Kathara grid, but we'll get into that, you know, in a future course that I'm going to be doing on the Kathara grid, because the Kathara grid's very important, you know, because it's the Kathara grid is basically part of the universal design system, you know, the universal template that I often speak about. But, you know, I haven't done a course in that yet because it's very, very complex. But it's not complicated. Once you understand the basics of, you know, the multidimensional system, how creation works, how, you know, we are a holographic projection of our unconsciousness. And then you can start putting together the relationship between soul and body in a more harmonious and symbiotic way. Because that's what we meant to do, is to have this harmonious relationship between our bodies and our souls. So there's not a soul that's over there that has nothing to do with the body. The body is actually an expression of what is in the soul. And so we can control and manage what is happening in our physical bodies through how we deal with our souls. Because the energy we produce in our souls will be manifest in our bodies. And that's where sicknesses come from, because we are designed to fail, we're designed to be afraid and to be dependent, and all of those values and qualities and standards which are drilled into our heads, you know, when we are from young age. This then, all these beliefs get projected into our bodies, Whereas if we can change our beliefs and project different things into our bodies. You know, but sometimes things go wrong, you know. It did with me recently. I started having pains in my chest and I couldn't, you know, I'm pretty good at health and healing, and I couldn't diagnose what was wrong with me. And it took me about 4 weeks to begin to understand what was happening. And and it had something to do with my bowels and my and so I realized there was a blockage in my bowels, and so I started drinking, turned to a liquid diet, started getting rid of the blockages in my bowels, and now I had to ask myself, what is blockages in my bowels? And it's fear. Then I had to go through, you know, what is it that I'm afraid of? And then I had to go through a whole list of my fears, you know, and I said, am I really afraid of that? Well, how do I manifest that? And then it starts to, so I deal with them in both directions, you know. So I look at, because fear is a very strange thing, because it's just imagined. There is actually nothing to fear. Our fears are just imagined. And they become real when we imagine them and we start acting on them. Then they become very real things in our experience, yeah, in our bodies. So yeah, there's so much to learn. But you know, I thought to myself, what am I going to do with this bunch of students who complete the 3-year course? What are we going to do then? And then I thought, well, what did I do? I'd finished my 3 years of training. And then after my 3 years of training, I was given a contract to become a grid keeper. So I could use the skills that I'd learned and the information I'd been given to intervene on planet Earth in a very real way. And I see how in 2006 I started grid work, and in 2020 how this planet is changing the consciousness of this planet. So I thought, well, after 3 years we'll start an intervention group, and what we'll do is, in a very real way, we'll begin to intervene on different matters on Earth and start using the skills that we've learned, the energetic skills, to affect what is happening in the hologram in a bigger picture. So I found that quite an exciting prospect, and look forward to that if when we get there, and if you want to join that. Okay, folks, we've done about an hour now, and I didn't want to make it too long for everybody, so keep it down to a manageable proportion. But I've loved having you all here and hearing your questions. If you have any further questions, write them down and then email them to me, and I'll be very happy to deal with any and all questions. But, you know, the stuff that I'm teaching is so vast and it's so interconnected, and you know, that it takes a while for it to actually become at home within you, you know, to become domiciled so that you resonate with it. So yeah, it takes a while, so, and I appreciate that. And you know, we're in it together. There's none greater or lesser. We're in it together, all in the same boat. Okay, much love to you all, and we'll see you next month. If you feel this meeting's been useful and you'd like to have it more regularly, quite happy to do that. I just don't want to, you know, use your time, you know. But if you'd like to do it, I'm quite happy to do it. So much love to you all. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.